This video will cover the process of how to go from Character Creator to ZBrush, where you can begin sculpting and refining your character. You can go back and forth between Character Creator and ZBrush as many times as you'd like, and we'll cover the process for changing entire proportions of your character in both of these programs. We'll also discuss the different GoZ options in ZBrush, so you can bring in other files to use as reference while you hone your creation. Now, we've talked a lot about ZBrush, but we haven't gone in there yet, so let's send all of this stuff over to ZBrush. Before I do that, I'm going to hop over to ZBrush real quick, and we're going to go to Preferences, GoZ, and there's a Clear Cache Files options. We're going to be using GoZ to send files from Character Creator to ZBrush and back again. So we're going to clear those cache files initially. Just go ahead and hit OK. And what that's basically doing is, if you've been, like I have usually, I send a lot of stuff back and forth between Character Creator and ZBrush. And while I'm doing that, if I go here to the Scene tab, I'm sending a lot of files back and forth that have the same name. So there's some temp files, some old cache files with the same name. It could confuse Character Creator or ZBrush. So to avoid that confusion, and again, I'm starting fresh in ZBrush, I'm starting fresh in Character Creator, go ahead and clear the cache files, and then there won't be any confusion between either program. So how do I send files over? You're going to see up here in your interface is a GoZ button. There's also underneath File Export, there's a GoZ option in here, GoZ Character. So I'm going to go ahead and select the top character node all the way down to the bottom here. We're going to hit that GoZ button, and we're going to get a dialog box here. Because we just have a fresh session of ZBrush sitting open, we don't have a previously made character over there that we're sending back and forth. Create is what we're going to be doing. We're creating something brand new. You have some options in here to split body part by material group and then also by body parts. I like to split out the eyelash and the tear ducts into its own object. That's because if I'm going to do anything with the base topology in ZBrush, for instance, like if I want to take it into Z-Wrap or Wrap or something like that, I don't want the tear ducts and the eyelash geometry to come along with it, so I split that out here. Now we also have some more options down here under Pose. We have A Pose, T Pose, and Current Pose. For now, I'm going to send over the Current Pose. That's that nice relaxed A Pose with the relaxed fingers. It's just a nice relaxed pose to sculpt on, and it's symmetrical. However, if we're going to be changing proportions, you're going to want to send over that T-Pose. I'll do both just so you can see how it works. So for this initial pass over to ZBrush, we're going to say Current Pose, GoZ. That's going to send everything over to ZBrush. There we go. And if you're new to ZBrush, we have an object here. If we click and drag on our canvas, and you keep clicking and dragging, it's just going to keep dragging the same object over and over again on your canvas, and it makes a mess. Go ahead and hit Control-N on your keyboard to clear your canvas. And if we go back to my YouTube channel and we go to the playlist section and scroll down, there is an intro to ZBrush here. If you click on that, if you're new to ZBrush, if you're familiar with Character Creator and you're just kind of dipping your toe into ZBrush for that functionality, I would say maybe start with this series. It's a pretty quick series to go through. It'll get you acclimated to not only the basics of what we're going to be using, which is actually very little of ZBrush, but this will get you caught up in all sorts of cool, fun ZBrush functionality. If you go to my ArtStation channel, and if you want to see anything I've done, like, oh, how did you make this baseball head? If you click on these are project based, so you can scroll down and you can watch the first live stream to set it up, and then the second live stream to finish it out and render it off, for example. And if you keep scrolling down, you're going to see these little pages turned down in the corner. Here's your intro to ZBrush, and then here's all the what's new stuff that's also on my YouTube channel. This might be a little easier to navigate, whatever's easier for you if you want to see all the new functionality in ZBrush since 4R8, or you just want to get into intro to ZBrush, it's all right here. So YouTube or my ArtStation page, you can use those to get caught up in ZBrush. But back in ZBrush, we have our object loaded as a tool, and this number over here indicates that it has subtools. So it has 9 objects sitting in this tool in our tool palette. Again, we're going to click and drag that onto our canvas, and we can't do much with it right now. We got to go up here and hit this edit button or hit T on your keyboard, and that'll put this object into edit mode. Now we can go through and we can navigate around in ZBrush. So like I said, get caught up in ZBrush and then meet me back here and we'll continue forward. For everybody else who already knows how to use ZBrush well enough, you can start sculpting. Now, one thing you're going to find immediately is that if you tap S on your keyboard to change your draw size, you're going to see it caps out pretty small. There's not a whole lot you can do with that brush size. A couple different ways you can change that. The easiest way is just to come up here to your draw size and double click dynamic. That'll turn dynamic off, and then your brush size, you can make it as big as you want. Now, the caveat to this is also what controls keeping your IMM brushes consistent based on camera position. If you don't know what that means and you're not going to be using IMM brushes, don't worry about it. Double-click Dynamic and just use your brush as normal. If you are going to be doing that, you can double-click this to keep it on. You do have more options. You can go in here to Preferences, Draw, and you can crank up your max brush size if you want. You also have a multiplier down here under Dynamic Brush Scale. So you can set this to 2 or 3 or 4, and that'll get your brush size back up with Dynamic turned on. There's another option, Z Plugin Scale Master. You can hit this ZBrush Scale Unify button. Essentially what that does is just change the export scale to still be compatible with your external program, but also make brushes and ZBrush behaviors compatible with ZBrush. Now, for this particular workflow, sending a base body and GoZing it back and forth with ZBrush, this option will actually work. When we get into face tools and things that have layers, I wouldn't recommend using this. I'd use one of the other options. So just to keep things simple, let's go ahead and just double click that dynamic button and we can start sculpting. However, before we do that, you're going to see we have a symmetrical mesh in here, but I don't have symmetry turned on in ZBrush. How to do that is you can tap X on your keyboard, and now you'll see we have 2 cursors. And if we go in here to transform, you'll see Activate Symmetry is turned on. So tapping X on your keyboard toggles this button on or off, and by default, symmetry is in the X. You can change the symmetry to X, Y, or Z, or all 3, or even radial, but for now, just toggling X symmetry on and off will activate X symmetry. If we go over here and turn on our floor, you're going to see, number one, we need to make it a little bigger. Let's go in here to Draw, Grid Size, we'll crank that up. You'll see we're Y up in space, X is left to right, and then Z is forward and back. That's what the green is Y, red is X, and Z is, again, forward and back. So we'll go ahead and turn off our floor here. We've got our brush size here. I'm actually going to go in here to Preferences, Edit. I'm old school ZBrush. I'm going to turn off Align Cursor to Surface while I sculpt, and then we can start making changes. One thing to note, we're not going to be making any proportional changes in the current state that we're in. We're in that relaxed A pose. If we're going to be making any proportional changes as of this recording, we're going to do that through our T pose. So don't get confused. We'll cover that in just a second. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go over here with, say, our standard brush. If you want to change your brushes, you can hit B on your keyboard. That'll load this up. And then say you want to change to your clay brushes, you can hit C to narrow it down to all your brushes that start with C. And then in here is clay. BCL will select the clay brush. You can also assign hotkeys. Again, go to that Intro to ZBrush playlist, and that'll get you caught up in ZBrush. This isn't a ZBrush workshop or anything like that, so I'm not going to cover everything. But we'll switch over to our standard brush, and we'll kind of dig in a little bit, and then we'll go through here, and we'll accentuate this jaw. We'll go through here, we'll grab our move brush, and we'll give ourselves like a little bat nose here. We'll go up here, and we'll really crank that brow up. So again, any brushes you want to use, feel free. If these eyelashes are getting in the way, and we want to start doing some work around the eye, let's open that Subtool menu. Underneath our tool menu at the top, we'll scroll down and we got our subtool menu. You can see we have our base body selected by default. If you don't, obviously select the base body. If we want to turn everything off but the base body, we can either go in here to solo. Your solo button may be down here in your interface, but you can turn that button on. Or you can hold down Shift, and with the base body selected, turn off that eyeball. That'll turn off the eyeball for everything. I always like to come back in and just turn that eyeball on while I'm working on this subtool. I'll leave that up to you. And now we can go through here and sculpt without these eyelashes getting in the way. Now again, I'm not going to be doing any major proportional changes. I'm not going to be making, legs longer or hands bigger or anything like that. I'll show you how to do that in ZBrush. But remember, you can always go back into Character Creator after this and make those changes proportionally in the other program. You don't have to do it in ZBrush, but it is available to you. Another really powerful thing you can do in ZBrush is we'll take this tool menu and we'll just grab this gray area and scroll up, and we'll open the geometry menu here. You can either hit Control D on your keyboard, and you'll see if we hover over any button in ZBrush, we'll get a little extra information. This is Subdivide Mesh. Control D is the hotkey. You can hold down Control and get even more information about that object or that button in the ZBrush interface. Basically, it's going to divide our mesh. Now we're on subdivision level 2. We still have subdivision level 1, and this is what we're going to be sending back and forth to Character Creator. But while we're in ZBrush, you know, we want to go in here and have fun in ZBrush, right? And ZBrush is famous for being able to go in here and sculpt high-res details in, right? So I'm going to switch to my damn standard brush, or the Damien standard brush. Again, BDS will select that brush for you. You can hold down Alt and you can kind of pull up to a ridge, and then you can let go of Alt and you can kind of carve in. You can use this as a really fast, easy way to kind of go through there and, again, just start dialing in what type of character you're trying to make. I'm just going through and carving in, really accentuating this jawline here, and then I'll go back in with my clay brush or my clay tubes brush or my standard brush and just continue working on this. Again, we're not changing anything proportionally, so I'm not going to like move any bony landmarks around, like move elbow positions or anything like that. But what I can do is I can take the inflate brush and I can go through here and I can inflate this geometry. So you can go through there and just tap inflate. You can also go through here and hold down Control. You can mask areas if you want. So this is mask pin by default. So if you hold down Control, you can like mask this here, and then you can go through and sculpt along here, and then you can Control tap to invert that mask, and then you can sculpt in here and smooth it out, and then Control drag to unmask everything. And then again, hold down Shift to select your smooth brush. You can change any smooth brush options and go through here and just kind of finesse your mesh into shape. So I'm going to go ahead and thicken this neck up. If you want, you can use the inflate brush for that to do that quickly. You can also hold down Control, go in here to mask lasso. You can mask just the neck here. We'll Control tap to blur that mask out. Control tap in your document to invert it. And then we'll go down here to our deformation, and we can do an inflate in here with your deformers over here. Let's go ahead and Control drag and unmask everything. And just to kind of send this home again, let's go ahead and hit divide one more time. We're up into 214,000 points. So we can actually start getting pretty detailed. Again, our damn standard brush, we can go through and kind of cut in, and then our clay tubes or our clay buildup brush, we can go through here and start refining our volumes and our forms, and then our standard brush, whatever you want to do to continue detailing this character out. And we're going to be doing a lot of this. In fact, most of your time is probably going to be spent, you know, doing that fun stuff there. However, while we're doing that work, we want to send this character back over to Character Create and make sure that when we finally bring this character to life, it'll be what we expect. So let's go ahead and check back in with Character Creator with our new updated face here. Oh, one thing I do want to call out. Remember when like we didn't, you know, if you didn't have the morphs for the ear, let's drop back down to subdivision level 1. Let's go ahead and just mask this ear. Let's hold down Control, select mask pin. We're going to mask this ear area here. That's actually Control drag to unmask that. Here we go. Mask this ear area here. There we go. We can Control tap to invert our mask by Control tapping in the document. We can also, just in case you need to know, go over here to our tool masking menu. All of the hotkey stuff I'm doing in here, like Control tapping to blur or Control tapping to invert, it's all in here. You can blur, you can invert in here, etc. So let's say I want to, you know, kind of pull this ear out to a point. So I can go in here to my move brush. We can go ahead and say, hey, I want elf ear. So I'm just going to kind of drag this point here, and I'm going to pull this out like so. And in fact, we can go in here to BS. There is a spiral brush, BSJ. You can hold down Alt and spin it one way. You can let go and spin it the other way. So I'm going to hold down Alt, and we're going to kind of spin this backwards here. And we're going to hold down Shift to kind of smooth that out. Let's go back to subdivision level 1, and we can start detailing this ear out. So you can see very quickly in ZBrush, let's go in here to our inflate brush, and we'll inflate this ear a little bit, make it a little more meaty. So very easily we can go through here and sculpt on our character and, you know, fine tune our shapes. So even if you didn't have a particular morph, it's easy enough to go in here in ZBrush and, you know, change the nose shape. In fact, there isn't even a morph in there that'll allow you to do what I did really quickly, kind of just putting on a little bat nose in here, you know, so it's super easy to do in ZBrush and totally compatible with Character Creator. So again, we have 3 subdivisions on here, 214,000 polygons, and we need to send this back to Character Creator. The good news is when we hit go, so here's our GoZ options. We had a GoZ option in Character Creator. We have the same GoZ options over here. In ZBrush, we have GoZ, which will only GoZ the selected object back over. We have GoZ All, which is, you guessed it, it'll GoZ everything regardless of visibility. And then we have GoZ Visible. Well, I'm just going to GoZ All. These are all invisible. If I want to, I don't know, if you want to play it safe or you feel better about it, hold down Shift and then turn the eyeball back on. That'll make everything visible. That way you can hit the visible button or you can hit all. In this case, we're going to send these changes back. However, it's not going to send over 214,000 polygons. It's going to drop it down automatically to the lowest subdivision level and send that mesh over. That low subdiv level is what's getting bound to the skeleton and is being animated. Now don't worry, we will have our details on that low res mesh, and you'll be able to see all your beautiful detail from ZBrush in there eventually. We'll get to that in a bit. But for now, we're going to go back, GoZ back our changes that we've made. So we're going to say GoZ all. That's going to drop everything to the lowest subdivision level. Back in Character Creator, it'll automatically load up Character Creator, pop open this dialog box, and it's going to be set to update automatically. You can just keep all the defaults here. Current pose is already selected. Go ahead and hit update. And all those changes we made in ZBrush are in Character Creator. And if we want to go in here and say, you know, animation player, motion, wrinkle check, dramatic male, that'll zoom in on the face. We can hit play and it'll play the animation here. We can switch this animation over here to, again, male walk. And so while you're creating in ZBrush or changing things in Character Creator, you'll be able to see it come to life and you know, make good decisions based on what your actual character is and how it will behave. So let's go back here to motion, pose, and we'll switch back to a pose here. And even though we made changes in ZBrush, we can still go back in here and say, okay, now that I've seen it in ZBrush and I've seen it in here, you know, I want to go through here and make the belly a little bigger. Maybe I want to make the hands a little bigger, the arms a little shorter here, maybe the neck a little bit longer, maybe the head a little bit bigger, maybe the eyes in here. So again, you can just click on the eye area. That'll take you here, and then you can change the eye scale, or you can click in here and, you know, change which way the eyes are tilted. You can move the mouth out a little bit here. So again, go through here, change and modify any proportional stuff you want to do. Now, let's say we want to use ZBrush to make proportional changes as well. What I'm going to do is go in here to Motion, Pose. I'm going to go to T-Pose. I'm going to go back here to our Scene tab. And again, here's our character body. Select all of these. We're going to GoZ back to ZBrush. And this time it's defaulted to relink. It knows that we were just in ZBrush, we came back, and we have a file ready to go back to sitting there in ZBrush, ready to be updated with any changes we've made in Character Creator. So relink is the option we want. Again, we want to separate out our eyelashes and tear ducts. We did that originally. We want to maintain that parity, so go ahead and always have those checked on from now on. And instead of current pose, you could even hit T-Pose in here if you want to, even though our current pose is a T-Pose. So I'm going to say T-Pose over here, hit GoZ, and that's going to move our verts into that T-pose. There we go. Now don't worry, we didn't lose anything. On the base body where we were doing all that detail work, we still have our subdivision levels. So all Character Creator is doing is moving around those low-res verts, and then our subdivisions in ZBrush will just update to maintain all of that information. So while you're going through here and, you know, you're modifying the musculature or adding any details, those will just be in these higher subdivision levels, and then Character Creator will be moving around these low-res verts. So now that we're in a T-pose, we can use ZBrush to make proportional changes. So for instance, we have the body selected here. Let's hold down Control. Let's switch over here to Mask Lasso. I'm going to mask everything just below the knee. And let's say I want to make the whole character a little bit taller based on the shin length. So I'm going to Control Tap to invert that mask. Control Tap on the object here to kind of blur that mask a bit. I'm going to hit W to go into gizmo mode. And if I just pull up on this gizmo, you'll see I make the character taller, but all the rest of these face pieces aren't following along. So undo that. And with gizmo activated, incidentally, if your gizmo is like weird and wacky somewhere, just hold down Alt and hit this little back arrow. That'll reset it to world axis. Turn on this move multiple option. That's transpose all selected subtools. So if you click this little box here, it'll turn into 3 boxes, and now everything else will move along with it. If for some reason you have a bunch of hashed stuff, Control Shift drag in your document, and that'll unhash everything. And now with our feet masked on our base body and we move up, we can actually change the proportion of our character, and everything else will follow along. Let's go ahead and turn that off. let's say we want to make the hands a little bit bigger. So I'm going to control drag in our canvas to unmask everything, and then I'm going to control drag over the wrist of our character, and then control tap to kind of blur that mask a little bit. I'm going to control tap in our document to invert that mask, and then I'm going to hit W on my keyboard to go into move mode, which is gizmo mode basically. I'm going to hold down Alt and tap on my character's wrist, and that'll set the gizmo pivot. And then I can hold down Alt. You'll see when I hold down Alt, it unlocks the gizmo. Hold down Alt and move it into the wrist. And then again, just holding down Alt, you can change the gizmo position and orientation. So there's my gizmo, there's my hands. Now I want to scale them up. So I'm going to grab the middle of the gizmo. And unfortunately, by default, ZBrush is going to scale away from the world axis and towards the world axis. So what we need to do is go over here to this side menu bar, turn on local symmetry, and then turn off dynamic. And then we're going to use the local axis symmetry for those hands to scale. So now when I scale those hands up, we can go through here and it will just change the scale. We can even scale the hands longer, shorter, whatever you want to do. And while we're moving this mesh around, we can tell Character Creator, hey, where we move these verts, move the bones along with it. So let's go ahead and unmask. We've made our changes. Let's send this back to Character Creator. But before we do that, let's throw in another possibility here. While I'm sculpting on this object, let's say I want some reference in my scene. I'm going to go in here to Tool, Load Tool. I teach at CG Master Academy, and I have these base bodies that I send to them that they can use. So I'm just going to load up this base body male as reference. So here I can select in my tool palette, I've got my Character Creator base body objects here. And then I've got this new character over here. So I've got the body male selected from my new character. It has eyeballs in there too, but I just want the body selected. I'm going to go back to my Character Creator character, and underneath these subtool options, I'm going to go down here to append, and I'm going to choose the body male. That's going to, appending will take the body male from this other subtool and put it at the bottom of this subtool stack with my Character Creator object. It's a little smaller than mine, so if I hit W on my keyboard, that'll bring up the gizmo. I can just scale the character up to match the Character Creator file. I can hit Q to go back into draw mode. So Q is draw, W, E, R is move, scale, and rotate. For gizmo, you can just hit W, and then Q is to go back into draw mode so we can sculpt. Now, my guy is in the way. However, I can go up here to transform, turn on split screen, and I'm going to select my base body. So now while I'm sculpting on my base body here, and I can, change the subdivisions up, I can use this other object as reference. Now, if I want to move or hide these other assets, remember, hold down Shift, turn off the eyeball with the selected subtool, then you can just turn on the base body, turn on the body male reference, and now while I'm sculpting on this body over here, I can have this as reference in my scene here. So again, just using that as a way to look at my bony landmarks, my musculature, my proportions, totally fine to do. Now, if I'm done doing that, I'm going to go down here to transform, turn split screen back down to 0. I'm going to hold down Shift, I'm going to turn on all of my subtools, and then I'm going to turn off that body male. I don't want to send over my reference to Character Creator. I just want to send over what I'm working on here. So again, we've changed the body, we've changed the proportions. Now we have some reference in our scene. So instead of going up here to Tool, GoZ All, I'm just going to GoZ Visible. And because our reference male is invisible, it's not going to send them over. So let's go ahead and say GoZ Visible. So all of our ZBrush changes, you see it went down to the lowest subdivision level. It sent everything over. It's automatically set to update. I have T-Pose selected. I'm going to choose Adjust Bone to fit Morph, say Update, and then all those proportional changes that I made in ZBrush will automatically update the bone positions so that it continues to animate correctly. So to test that, we'll go in here to Motion. Again, Male, Walk, and there we go. All of our ZBrush changes have been updated on the character. Of course, just like we've been doing, you can go back here to Motion, Pose, A Pose, and we can scale the hands back down, etc. Continue making any changes between Character Creator and ZBrush that you want. Now, I contemplated even putting this in because it's confusing, but technically, if I have, again, all my objects here and I say GoZ, I didn't change it out of its relaxed A pose, and I don't need to. All I have to do is hit, I don't have to go in here to Motion, Pose, A pose, or T pose. I can just say, go back in here, relink my T pose. So this is like an under the hood T pose. That'll send a T pose out of CC, even if my character's not in a T pose. this will update this character to the T-pose. And then if I go through here and just like we talked about, you know, let's mask this and scale his hands up and then GoZ all back over to Character Creator. Even though this guy isn't in the T-pose, I can still say T-pose, under the hood T-pose, adjust bones to fit morph. I'm updating, hit update. And then that'll go ahead and update my character. The hands will get bigger. We'll do an animation. The bone, you know, so motion, male, walk M. Works fine. If we look at the bone contents, Windows, Bone Manager, F3. And we look at the bone display, you know, it's the hands updated perfectly. So really the T-pose is like an under the hood kind of T-pose that doesn't necessarily have to be applied to the character. I wasn't sure if I wanted to even bring it up, but I figured you'd rather have the information than not have it. The next video will cover how to save and resync files between Character Creator and ZBrush, detailing your character, and finally making a variant goblin because I'm bored of looking at this one.